Just went to we see now, and we are live. I've got the message on screen that we're live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's edition of the chat at 8, where we have a very casual chat with one of you folks. Joining me this evening is Michael Brannigan from the Kieran Frawley country in Skerries. Michael Brannigan, how the hell are you? Are you well in yourself?
I'm fantastic, and it's lovely to have a chance to chat with you and obviously the wider Leinster fan base. As you can see, because we're having a few technical difficulties, I'm going down for a nice little spot on the rocks here where it'll be away from the crowd,
We are.
and I'll give you a little peek at lovely Skerries and why we love this place. Look, and you can see hopefully the islands in the background and all the rest of it. Old St. Patrick's Island out there, 432 AD, he landed on that
Oh,
island.
yeah.
Would you believe? So his first venture into Ireland, and the Vikings weren't far behind him. So we know a thing about visitors out here. But anyway, we're also mad rugby fans, mad Leinster fans. So delighted to be here and having a chat.
This is it. Now, come here, Michael. I ask everyone this: where were you brought up? Where did you live growing up? And obviously, you're speaking to us now from Skerries. But what's the background? Where did the love of rugby come from? Was it a schooling thing, or were you just brought into it by a family member, or how did that happen?
We're very much from Skerries. Was born here, born as we would say locally, born, buttered and bred. Went to the local De La Salle school here. My father was a huge rugby man and played in the won the Towns Cup for Skerries. I think he had 4 Town Cups medals, or he certainly a number of them. And Towns Cup rugby was huge here. Obviously, Skerries is one of the feeder schools, feeder clubs into the whole Leinster scene. Has done well over the years. Great community club, as you know. Jim Glennon, Bill Mulcahy, Wiggs Mulcahy. Great community spirit here. We'd have
Yeah.
200 kids on a Sunday morning. So that was my love. I became a rugby addict. Proudly, would you believe, got one junior schools cap for Leinster, the Leinster A as they were back then. So it was outside of all the kind of elite schools.
Oh,
Played a match. We used to play Connacht. We used to play the full Connacht team actually. But I mean, my Christmas present every year since I was about 6 was a rugby ball. And with coming from one of 10 with 4 brothers, the row was who took my rugby ball out to kick it on the beach. And I used to have the bottom of the ball worn out by about the end of February. It was worn from drop kicking on the road. But I suppose my other
yeah.
dimension of
I
rugby.
can well imagine. I can well imagine.
Now, just to show I'm not totally Skerries inbred, I did manage, I'm delighted to say, to spend 6 years in London. And when I was in London, as in when in Rome, etc., I played not for London Irish, but for Blackheath. And played actually one Premiership match
Ah,
effectively,
right.
which was against Saracens, funnily enough. We were hammered. But I played kind of senior rugby for Blackheath. They would be the oldest open club in the world. Trinity were 1855, but Blackheath are
Yeah, yeah.
1858. So good connections there. But I mean, rugby to the
Ah,
core.
right. Okay.
Obviously,
Very good. Yeah, and what? Now, I hate saying because I'm not going to guess this because I've insulted people in the past. What position did you play on the park? What position did you play on the park?
yeah. Well, I have to tell you, belying my current physique, which is a work in progress. Don't laugh when I tell you it wasn't tight head prop. I played. Would you believe I played fullback and out half? I was a left-footed kicking out half, and without giving my age away, suffice to say that in probably one of my most favourite match memories, I played against Black Rock here in Home Patrick, about 300 yards from where I'm sitting, and the back row for Black Rock that day was Willie Duggan and
Yeah.
Fergus Slattery. Tojo Byrne was playing.
Oh,
Neil Francis, funnily
oh,
enough, who I became friendly with, who
oh,
I
yeah.
think is a great rugby writer, but he was on the sidelines that day. But we beat them. I knocked over 6 kicks in a gale, and I must say really enjoyed it, obviously. But believe it or not, it was a kicking fullback stroke out half, which if you saw my physique today, you wouldn't have put that down, I can tell you.
take you up on something there. I was going to take you up on something there, Michael, that you said. You think Neil Francis is a good rugby writer?
I do. To be honest with you, I did. I know he's dropped the ball a couple of times, and I understand that. But I always thought that his rugby writing. Now I'm talking about in terms of match writing. I always thought he was on the money.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I really did. I mean, obviously, I know. As I said, we all know. As I said, he's had some faux pas, and he's paid dearly for them. But when you look at the totally Munster biased, insipid writing that goes on now, and by the way, I'm a huge fan of Munster. I'm a very proud Irishman that has
Yeah.
proudly supported Munster all the way through. But I just find now at the moment, I'm actually getting a bit peeved with what I see is nothing more than an utter bias, anti-Leinster bias, nearly more than
Yeah.
pro-Munster. It seems to me like we're damned if we do and damned if we don't. But again, look, I don't want to be negative about it. I've got to the point now where I sort of think we just keep plodding on. I mean, look at our record. We've been in what? This is our third final in a row, fourth final in sort of
Yeah.
5 years. I mean, I was in Newcastle.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've lost those finals by the kick of a ball, the bounce of a ball. You'd think we'd been destroyed or something. I mean, you look at the
Yeah.
mighty clubs around Europe who would give their right arm for the record we had. Now, I'm not saying they'd love to have lost finals, but you know the point I'm making that, we are knocking on the door every year and nobody has a divine right to win these things. They are hard earned. And, if you don't have the pain of loss, you can never savor the joy of victory. That's always what I feel. So look, I'm one of those people that thinks we just have to keep knocking on the door. And if we don't win this year, which we may not, well, guess what? We pick ourselves up, we dust ourselves down, and we go at it again next year. And maybe we'll see Munster or Harlequins or Leicester or Bath or all these behemoths in a final, but I haven't seen them in one for a long time. So maybe their fans are happy
Okay.
with that.
Okay, Michael. Okay. On that point, and I know the point you're making, and I
Yeah.
agree with you. I do agree with you. On that point about finals and semi-finals, this idea, we discussed it last night, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on it. This idea of the neutral city for the semi-finals, be it Lisbon, be it San Sebastian, be it Porto, be it whatever it is. I can't remember the other cities they named. So essentially what they're saying is, okay, teams, you can play your best, you can top your pool, but you're not going to get home advantage for the semi-final. What are your thoughts on this whole thing? Now, I think it is a British media pushing narrative. What do you think?
I've probably got two views in it, which are probably conflicting. On the one hand, I can see the merit in the sense of having a weekend in a city. I can tell you, when I told my darling wife that there's talk of it going to Porto next year, she nearly had the flights booked. But and I can see the merit in that. I definitely wouldn't put them in the same stadium on the same day because, I mean, for crying out loud, we sold 82,000 tickets last weekend. But so on one part of me says I can see that from a kind of a gladiatorial thing. And I can see there's some merit in it, and I do agree. Some of my best days with Leinster have been abroad. I think back to the Clermont match in 2012, that incredible semi-final down in Bordeaux, when we just, Bafana's, Darcy got under him in the last play of the game, and dare I say, the lovely Wayne Barnes refereeing, we probably would have been out of sight that day anyway. But good old Cian Healy got a great try. Rob Carney got a mighty drop goal, you remember well. Like, we played brilliantly. That was a great away trip, of course, because we won. But so part of me says, yeah, but what I hate and what I detest, and the negative side of it is this, the British, and led by that Welsh English wannabe, Stephen Jones, the Sunday Times writer, who is totally anti-Irish.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, do you remember when the Heineken Cup was broken up? Oh, the English and the French, the marketing expertise, and there'll be sponsors coming out, and this will be the greatest thing since sliced bread. And Nigel, what's his name, who was behind Saracens, and all the moneyed guys, and they've all gone belly up now.
Oh,
and I
mean,
say to yourself, it was just annoying. So they're just mealy mouth. You know, one of, I suppose, overriding all that, Peter, I would say this. Not one commentator did I hear, because it's so Munster biased, with Hugh Cahill, who's a Lunster, and with Donal Lennon, who's Cork Con stroke La Rochelle. But did one of them
Yeah.
say in the weekend, last weekend, that of the Leinster 23, something like 20 of them were born, buttered, and bred and reared in Leinster, compared with Northampton, which was nowhere near. And as for Saracens, Harlequins, who I love, but they're a rag bag of different things, and as are Toulouse. Toulouse have got the money
Yeah.
coming in. So we are, and we are effectively, driving Irish rugby, proudly doing so, proudly supporting other provinces. But as I say at the start, we're damned if we do, damned if we don't. I've actually getting to a point where I nearly say, why do I get upset about all these other media reports? I shouldn't, but I do. Unfortunately, I do. It's just in my nature. I'm passionate about it, and it pisses me off when I see.
Come here, Michael. I tell you what. I know exactly what you mean about the media and the anti-Leinster bias. I read it and I kind of smile at it, and I really don't give a fuck. I don't let it upset me. I really don't, because
You're right.
all I have to do is all I have to do, Michael, is take out one of my Leinster jerseys and count the amount of stars on it, and go, there you go, lads. I really don't care.
I couldn't agree more with you. And by the way, if you ever look at any of my little photos I'm in, I actually get the stars. I actually, don't laugh, this is how sad I am. I get them embroidered, right? I always flag the Munster lads. There's a little old woman down in Limerick that loves stitching the stars onto the Leinster jerseys. And I don't mean to be sexist when I say that.
Hey, look, the top I'm wearing, I made it myself.
Love it. Well, my flag. Dare I say, my sort of half-famous flag. I have 4 stars. Cost me 20 quid to get them put on. And the same with my jersey. I have the 2011 final jersey. No, 2012 actually. Sorry. Which I have the 4 stars embroidered, and I am dearly, belovedly looking forward to hopefully signing on or getting another 6th one. There's a guy actually in the Omni.
Well, hold on now. Before we go. Right, hold on. Before we go on to the final, we have a few more things to talk about. What did you think of the game against Northampton?
I'm bound to say I was disappointed. I was delighted we won, and semi-finals are for winning.
Yeah.
And you look at the last 2 finals where we've played unbelievable rugby against Toulouse. A top-class Toulouse side, and we have played. You look at those matches have been lost because of what happened subsequently. But we waltzed into the final, red hot favourites, and look what happened. So I'm kind of saying to myself, and I am a man who sees the glass half full, that maybe because we played so poorly in the end, that it's not a bad thing going into a final where nobody is saying, although I gather the bookies have us 1-point favourites. I'm not sure I do, to be honest with you. I would love us to be frank. I'd love us to be going in. So back to your question, what did I think of it? I'd tell you exactly what I think happened. I think we should have been 40 points up at halftime. I think anyone there felt that we were playing with them. They were making basic mistakes, etc. And I think when Ross missed that kick in front of the posts, and there's no reflection on him, by the way, but you could feel the psychic of the game changing, because suddenly these guys said, Jesus, these fellas have gone asleep here. And we had gone asleep. And I think then the try was there. I have to tell you, because I was in the Hill 16, when the last play happened, where we were, we could not see the cover defense coming across, as it, thank God, did. And it looked like it was a walk-in for the last try, which would have put them ahead. And we were all saying Hail Marys down there. Oh, my God. All of our hearts were in our mouths. And we did say, ultimately, to answer your question, how in Christ's name have we ended up in this position when we were so obviously better than they were for, 50 minutes,
Yeah. Do you know what I think it was, Michael? And I think it was the fact that some of our key players, like Doris, etc., they were rested for 3 weeks. Up to that. They didn't travel to South Africa. The 7 or 8 or how many number of key players in that group. They just didn't seem to be fit. And like you said, they lasted 50 55, 60 minutes maybe. And Northampton saw that. And if you saw Doris's reaction at the end of that game, it was a big fucking exhale, eyes up to heaven, kind of like thank fuck that's over type reaction. And
I think
that's
you
the
might be right.
feeling
I mean,
that most of the fans.
No, I agree, Peter. I think there's this perennial discussion. Do you rest him? Do you not? I mean, we know what happened in the semi-final last year. We had 10 Grand Slammers, or was it more, in the stands? I mean, that was a travesty.
Yeah.
Obviously, that was a selection error. It just happened. We thought our guys could go up, and we were resting them, back to your point. And maybe they weren't battle hardened as a result when we then went to that final against La Rochelle. I mean, to be 17-0 up at home and then go back into our box, because if I look at it, I haven't had the courage to look at that final since, but I do remember that Gibson Park started kicking the ball back to them, and all they did was said thanks very much and ran it back to us. Whereas had we kept playing with the intensity that we had for the first 20 half hour, I think we probably would again, by the way, may I say, Ross Byrne hit the crossbar post twice, and we didn't go for the drop kick at the end, etc. So we only lost these matches by the narrowest of margins. You would think, from reading the obituaries and the people jumping on our grave and worse on our grave, you would think we weren't even within an ass's roar of it. Whereas, of course, we were, So even despite the fact that we didn't do ourselves justice, we were still within a hair's breadth of winning, which is ultimately a point, I always feel is strongly worth making, that we're not as bad. We're never as good as people say we are, but we're equally never as bad. We're somewhere, in the middle and probably on the more positive side, So I think it's a mistake. I think that was a mistake. I sincerely hope he runs them in now. They've only 7 matches left. They've had a good break now between post Six Nations and the last couple of weeks. Let them, and I mean, by the way, I mean for URC as well, don't be resting them before us. If we take our chances with injuries and get in there battle hardened.
Right. Okay. Good point. And I agree with everything you've said. One question I'd ask you, me being the same as you, being a mad Leinster fan, if Gary Ringrose is fit, match fit, I suspect he's going to start on Saturday against the Ospreys. Would you start? Again, it was asked last night. Would you start Ringrose and Henshaw in the centre of the park? Bench Osborne, depending if he goes for a 5-3-6-2 split, depending on what he's going to do there. I suspect it'll be a 5-3 split for the final. Would you leave Osborne off? Because and the reason I'm asking, Michael, is because I was listening to Brian O'Driscoll on Off the Ball, and he said Osborne and Henshaw are essentially both 12s. And he said Ringrose just offers that bit more in attack than Osborne does. And Bod said he would definitely start Ringrose and Henshaw. And I suspect Ringrose will start on Saturday against the Ospreys. What would you think about that, Michael?
Okay, well, I'll tell you, I think actually Jimmy O'Brien could be the key to all this, right? In terms of the final, and again, without jumping too far ahead. And why do I say Jimmy O'Brien? Because Jimmy O'Brien can play a decent game at scrum half. Now, if you have McGrath on the bench and you don't bring him on, that to me is a disaster. You've got to have courage. Now, obviously, Gibson Park is playing like a god at the moment, so it's understandable in the sense we don't bring him off. But if you're carrying a player like McGrath and saying, well, we're not going to use him, etc., only in an emergency, shall we say, well, then, in all honesty, and I know Jimmy's a very versatile and clever player, I think he could potentially cover. Now, where does that go back to the Ringrose thing? I agree with you. I think Gary at 13 is superb. And I really think, much as I'm so impressed with Osborne, his footballing skills, that left boot of his, which I wish we used more, by the way, on some of the penalty kicks up the right-hand side of the pitch. Because, Ross is naturally as a right footer, is kicking more conservatively. I don't understand why we don't give it to our left footer on the right-hand side of the pitch, particularly in the likes of Croke Park, where it's such a big open stadium and he can boom it down there. But I would definitely have Henshaw and Ringrose there. I also think Ringrose leadership. I think there is an argument that we lacked a bit of leadership on Saturday, that we didn't, have enough senior players stepping up to the plate there to sort of say, look, lads, we're going about this the wrong way. and allowing ourselves to be put in the position we were. So, and you're back to Frawley then as well. So go back to Niedermayer and the way he approached it with South Africa, and he is in end zone territory at the moment. His mindset at the moment is only one thing: that's a 1 point win against Toulouse. And I'd take a 3-0 victory today, believe me. 3-0 in the dirtiest, ugliest match ever.
Oh,
Thank you
Jesus,
very
yeah,
much. Yeah, 3-0 gone.
yeah.
Now I think he's going to go. He may even seriously think about 6-1, let alone 7-1, let alone 6-2, because he
Oh
is going.
no, I wouldn't go. No, 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 I wouldn't
No,
go.
no,
No,
I'm
what
only,
say to
I'm
your
only,
mouth? I
I,
wouldn't go. What would you go? What would you?
no,
What would you go 7-1 for?
I'm exaggerating to make a point, I suppose, Peter. But I think, for example, I think they'll bring Will Connors. Here's my tip: I think they'll bring Connors back to start, because I think what they'll do is they'll go out to chop the legs under the the big behemoths that Toulouse have, and they do have a number of them. Probably not as many as La Rochelle, but they do. And then have Josh on the bench to come in as when the game opens up a little bit more. He's obviously probably faster, etc. Now that means you're going to go for sure 6-2, and that's back to the point about who do you play. So if you've Jimmy on the bench with Frawley, who I think will drop, and I'm assuming here Hugo comes back. Hopefully Hugo's back in. So you put Gary in at 13, you've Hugo in at 15, and then your bench is actually Jimmy and Frawley. Frawley because he's covering out half as well, particularly, and then Jimmy is
Yeah, yeah.
covering. Frawley's also covering 15, but Jimmy then gives you coverage from 9 to the wings, and centre. Don't forget how Jimmy played. If you remember against South Africa, nobody talks about that anymore. When he came on at 13, do you remember against South Africa when we beat them? I'm not talking about the World Cup. And go back to I think it was the November series
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah,
Lansdowne Road. And he was
yeah, yeah,
outstanding.
yeah.
If you remember,
Yeah,
do you remember he
yeah,
came
yeah.
on early? Somebody went off injured. Was it Henshaw went off? I think it was was it Henshaw or the Ulster guy? But they went off in the first 10 minutes, and
I
kind
can't.
of gap. Yeah. So I think, if I'm asking you a question, I think,
Yeah,
much as I love Osborne and what he's done, I agree with O'Driscoll that the two of them are very similar. I mean, obviously he's 6'4", Osborne. He's he's even bigger than Robbie. Robbie's about 6'3", I think. But I think Robbie was playing great stuff.
yeah.
I think Ringrose's leadership, apart from his skill set in defence and attack, because I thought our attack looked a bit staid at the weekend, and I think that's because we thought we scored a couple of soft tries. I think we just felt we had it in the bag. When we got the third try, with a hat trick for James, for the no show, like the low show for James just after half time, you could almost see it. We sat back, we said, Ashley, that's it, it's all over. To get the first score after half time. And I think a lot of it, now you have to take your hat off to Northampton. Don't get me wrong, they never threw the towel in. And what is it Brent Pope used to say? Never give a
Yeah,
sucker an even break. And we gave them the even break, and they took it, and they
yeah,
almost took it catastrophically
they
from
did.
our perspective.
They almost did. That's
Yeah.
very true. There's a comment there, Michael. I don't know if you'd agree with it. From Trevor Mann. If Leinster lose 3 in a row, does Leo go?
Nah,
How
nah,
would you
nah,
how would you
nah,
answer
no.
that?
No, I don't. Again, I go back to
Well,
the point.
considering he's contracted.
Yeah. Well, I think I would say, in all honesty, again, Peter, I think it's Einstein's theory of relativity here. If you stacked us up all, look at over the 26 years of the Heineken Cup, look at the winners and plot out. I heard the BBC podcast the other day, saying, "Oh, of course, Toulouse are going to be playing their 8th European final in this final." Well, so are we. In point of fact, we're playing our 9th. We are playing our 9th European final, not our
Yeah,
8th. So we're actually more finals than Toulouse. Nobody's picked up on that fact. This is our 8th European Cup final, and we of course won and beat Perpignan, as you know, in the RDS, back in whatever it was when we won the Challenge Cup that night. So that was our 9th, and not to be dismissed, I might add.
oh yeah,
But so this is our
yeah,
8th as well. We've won 4 of them. We had an impeccable record for the first 4. And obviously we beaten in Newcastle. We blew it, I think, that day. Gary had a poor game that day, by the way, funnily enough. We then lost, of course, the 2 famous matches to La Rochelle, including last year. So, but this is our 8th European Cup final, and it's our 9th European final.
Yeah.
So, but that sort of bias again, that was the BBC podcast the other day, and they all said, oh, yeah, they're in it. And I laughed to myself saying, there's nobody correcting them, and there's no fear of any of the Munster biased Irish journalists.
Well, sure, look, I mean, yeah, but that's because Michael, you or I are not on that show, and we'd put them to rights if we were.
Yeah,
It's as simple as that. Right? That's all. Come here. Are you going to the game on Saturday, or no?
I certainly am. Looking forward to it, and I'm delighted to say, as much as I'm in the lotto for the tickets, I bought tickets for the final last year. But yeah, anyway, I'll talk about that in a minute, I suppose. Yes, going on Saturday. Really.
Well, listen, I'll tell you what. If you're going on Saturday, I'll meet you in the Herbert Park for a pint. Or whatever, a drink beforehand.
Lovely. Done deal, Peter. Look forward to that.
Yeah, drop us a message. I'll be down there early because I'll be in the press box. So drop me a message and I'll meet you, and we'll have a Swifty.
Lovely.
Right.
That's good.
Now, okay. How do you think the final is going to go? Where both teams playing away from home in London, in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I can't remember. I think the capacity, if I read it correctly, was 61,000 or something like that. I can't
62,
remember.
Yeah.
Where is that game going to be won or lost for Leinster, Michael, do you think? 62, yeah. All right.
Well, if I'm truthful about it and you answer me, put me on the spot now, I actually think Toulouse are very hot favourites. That's the truth, right? Just based on the semi-final.
Of course they are, yeah. Of course they are. Yeah,
and I'm kind of happy about that in the sense that I like us to go in if we can discover 85% of the fire, drive, determination, and application that we did against La Rochelle, I think we will win that final. Now, you would think, why did we dip so poorly in performance against Northampton, given Darcy and all these people are saying that the key to winning these is to up the performance from quarter to semi to final. And we didn't do that. We dipped significantly. Now, I would suggest to you that we weren't brilliant in that first half. We put them under huge pressure, though, and we scored a couple of good tries, but we didn't score any of our normal tries, but defence was very good, very tight. So what I'm going to suggest to you is in that semi-final, we did not play that well, but we didn't play badly, though, for the first 40, 50 minutes. And when we got to this magical third try, 20 points up, we just switched off. And rugby is a game played between there and here. And if you let those 3 inches loose, you're in trouble. And that's what we did. So I'm hoping we're going to get a backlash. I mean, a lot will depend on what happens in the next couple of games before it. And I do sincerely hope he plays the full team to let them go in there like, bulls ready to ram. So I hope that happens. As to where it will be won and lost on the day, I genuinely think he will pick Connors. I think Connors will, just to do almost a deja vu and an identikit of what they did against La Rochelle. Because although Toulouse are probably at the moment, there's no doubt about it, if you can put Ramos on the bench, that says something else. I don't think they'll put him on the bench in the final because his kicking is too imperious. And Kinghorn has played well. He's got a pretty bad nose at the moment, so whether he's fit or not, I presume he will. But he missed a few kicks, and I guarantee you Ramos wouldn't. So I think they will play Ramos with Kinghorn on. But I do think if we can bring that level of intensity, we will win. And look, we know this guy, Peter. Defenses win championships. So God bless. I hope that was probably Niedermayer's 14th game.
Yeah.
I know there was discussion that the La Rochelle was, but especially with the guys who haven't been away with Ireland. So you would have to hope and believe and think that the final, and it's particularly as he's got another couple of games between now and then, well, we're definitely past his famous watermark of 14 games. And if our defence can hold true, I think, I presume there's going to be a lot of Leinster fans there. We always say traditionally the French don't travel that well. Not convinced about that, Toulouse. But I think if we can do it and get a bit of a lead, which I think we could, and not throw it away like we've done in the last couple, then I think we can do it. I think they will go with the South African in the second row again initially. I don't know what you know. You know more than I do.
Well, I think they have to, Michael. I think they have to because I think what's going to be key. There's loads of keys. to this game, but one of them is going to be the set piece and the line out.
Yeah.
And Jenkins was key to that line out. Ross Maloney calling the line out, I think, was another key thing to that as well. I think that. But if you were to, what I'm looking forward to, and I think everyone the world over, the rugby world over, is looking forward to, is the battle of the nines.
Yeah.
You know, how do you?
Yeah, very true. Well,
that's going to be
like
fascinating, Michael. The battle of the nines.
It is. I don't know where to start with that, because Dupont is Le Petit Général. I mean, as you know, the French have always. That's probably the thing that has differentiated French rugby from Anglo-Irish rugby, is their view. We always had the Ollie Campbells of this world. The out halves were always the Jackie Kyles, were always the Doyons in our end. Whereas in France, it was the scrum halves, and they were always literally these Petit Générals. Now, in a sense, we have our own man, which is Gibson Park, who is playing unbelievable rugby. His breadth, his vision, his pace, by the way, over 20 yards is breathtaking. Now, is he as fast as Dupont? Probably not. Is he as strong as him? Probably not. I think he might have, believe it or not, I think he might have slightly better vision. Because Dupont is such a good player in his own right, he tends to take it on more himself, and he can be got at,
Yeah.
So I think you're right, though. Those two is going to be one hell of a battle. I feel a bit for Ross Byrne. I mean, to be honest, I think Ross, he obviously played superbly against La Rochelle. I think he kind of didn't have his best game last week. So hopefully he's going to bounce back, with a stellar performance, and that's going to be key. And I think with Ringrose and Henshaw around him, possibly Hugo back, which I'm assuming will happen too, at full back. And by the way, Jimmy might even be on the wing too. That's serious enough firepower coming through to take a bit of heat off Ross, maybe. And I agree with you. It's interesting the point about the two centres having been a bit the same, because they do tank it up the middle, don't they? Now they were very close to breaking through.
They do. But you know what? I can't. I can't wait to see. I presume, I don't know, but I presume Josh is going to start open side, and he's going to go after Entomac big time.
Yeah,
hopefully. I can't wait to see that. I can't wait to see Entomac.
Maybe they do it that way, and Connor's on the bench, but I can't see that. I would have thought they might go for Connors. I take your point, and maybe you're right. Maybe that's the attacking mindset, Peter, that we go out, in which case maybe they will go 5-3. But what's the point going 5-3 if you don't bring McCarthy on until like the 78th minute? You've just wasted a resource, which surely flies in the face of the Niedermayer philosophy and the South African one, which is you've got to earn your place on the bench, and you've got to give 20 minutes minimum of serious exposure. So, because I don't think you bring, I think O'Connor, I know what you're saying, and sorry, your argument, if I can be right in saying this, is we go out attacking, and I like that. I like it. In other words, don't put O'Connor's out as more of a defensive play. Put Van der Fleer out first to go after Intermac. I mean, I love that. Don't get me wrong. But I kind of feel, back to the defenses win finals, that I think that we'll go with the other way. I think we'll do it the opposite. I think that they'll put Connors out first to stop them in their tracks. Let them, again, like we did with La Rochelle, and then bring Josh, unleash the beast at 50 minutes, and let Josh get out there. Imagine that man with his tank having 30 minutes to unleash that weapon,
Yeah, true.
But
the more I think about that,
it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
I mean, if you take well, not it's impossible to take them out, but if you stop them, particularly Dupont, Entomac connecting, getting ball, I think the battle on the park is going to come from 1 to 8 against 1 to 8. And if we can stop our hassle fast ball getting to Dupont, getting to Entomac, if we can slow that down a bit, we're not going to do it for the whole game, but if we could do it in parts, you disrupt them. Dupont doesn't like going backwards. but he can also be very dangerous going backwards.
Yeah.
So it's how you balance that and get that right. So I wouldn't envy Leo's job for what
Now,
what he's
mind
doing
you,
around.
that said, Peter, and I'm going to dust them down and look at them again. We obviously have two incredible templates to look at, which are the last two semi-finals. I mean, our best games in the last 2 years, I would argue, were the semi-finals against Toulouse. Now, obviously, we're both at home, both in Lansdowne Road. I mean,
Yeah.
the one 2 years ago. Okay, last year they lost they lost 13, and then they shuffled the deck. If you remember, they moved Dupont out to out half, and they brought on the scrum half, and it probably did work
Yeah.
against them. But that said, there's Dupont is no mean 10 either. But then if you look the year before, and it actually would go back to your point, I think, which is that we attacked them. And when we attacked them, particularly that match, not last year, the year before, if you remember, was when Ross Maloney, everyone said, oh my God, this revelation. In fairness to Ross, he'd been doing it quite a bit. But if you remember at
Yeah.
one stage, I think it was a Johnny, he popped through a gap for, I think it was probably our first try. Again, I'm trying to remember, but I remember he had an outstanding game. And like the point being there, that was kind of back to the philosophy I think you're espousing, which is no, go after these guys. We make them uncomfortable. And in a way, I see the logic of that. So hence,
Yeah.
Leo, tough. He and Niedermeyer have a very interesting tactical call to make as to which way they go. But I can't help but feeling when I look at the loss of the last two. I mean, I was in Marseille. I was obviously in Dublin last year. I was in Newcastle the year before. And I can't help feeling, but
Uh,
that not
come here.
defense is key.
So can you hear me, Michael? Yeah, are you still there?
Yeah, I lost you there for a sec. You're back.
Sorry, no, I have you back. I have you back. I have you there. Yeah, I have you back. But so, are you going to go with would you favor a 5-3 or 6-2?
Definitely 6-2. And I just see Joe Lyons in there with a question. Will Connors must start? I agree with him. I kind of agree. And I think that means that,
Yeah.
you go 6-2. And I think the bench, again, I'm assuming Hugo's in. I think Frawley, and I think I know this is bold, but I'm going with it, is Jimmy O'Brien. Jimmy O'Brien, and because Jimmy can win at scrum half. Ringrose, by the way, can also play scrum half. I think he came in. Was it the Romania match in the World Cup that we won? I don't know. One of them got sin bin, Conor Murray or someone. And I remember. I think I'm right in saying this, that Ringrose went in at scrum half, and not bad, by the way. I think he played there for Blackrock or something.
Right. I'll tell you what. Enough about Leinster because we'll be accused of being Leinster biased. One thing I want to ask you, holy shit, we're nearly 10 minutes overtime. One thing I want to ask you, Michael, what are your thoughts on this 20-minute red card thing that World Rugby seems to be hell-bent on pressing ahead with? Are you in agreement? Do you think it's disgraceful, or what do you think? The 20-minute red card.
What do I think? Mixed views. And number one, I'm generally against it. I think if it's a red card, it's a red card. But I think what's happened is the way the rules are being adjudicated now. I mean, there's tackles going in now, which were, you'd have got applause from the sideline, and they're red cards at the moment. Now, by the way, I think it's right that they're really bringing this lowering down, and we know medically we're aware now more than we were many moons ago of the problems of some of these hits. So it's understandable. But, is the game as a result, or maybe are we in a transition period, but is the game being ruined by so many red cards, relatively speaking, coming in? The red card they're proposing, okay, it's sort of a black-red card in that, if I understand it properly, that player cannot come back on. So they've lost one of their frontline players for 20 minutes and another guy comes in. I could see there's some merit in that. I don't know whether do you have a halfway house that says I think accidental red cards, if I can call them that, should be looked on differently than foul play. So, for example, any player that leads with his shoulder to a head, and we've seen that in rucks, a situation where players are exposed, and this fella comes in with his shoulder and whacks a guy, I think that should be a red card gone. I think whereas if you look at a guy in a tackle where he's accidentally heads clash, and it's not okay, they say he didn't bend, but if the other guy comes in high, so if it's one of those ones that's, let's say, a 50-50, I think that could be a 20-minute red card scenario. I don't think that's as bad as the malicious guy that
I know
comes
what you
in,
mean.
or some guy that goes in with
Yeah,
a clothesline
yeah,
tackle, or say some guy that comes in, for example, and takes the legs out of a 15 that's catching a ball who lands on his head. They should be red cards. Whereas I do see those ones
yeah,
where it's an accidental, let's
yeah,
call it,
yeah,
crash of a poor technique that's led to a red card. So all this thing about, oh, well, the heads clashed and all, that's not, it's all about empathy. So, and I think that was the problem, for example, with my least
yeah,
favorite referee,
yeah.
according to the
There's
BBC, the
another one
best
there
one.
from. Sorry, Michael. There another comment
Yeah,
there from Joe Lyons. Knock on, fighting, pushing, and shoving. I can let go, but head on head or
yeah,
malicious.
yeah.
No, fuck
Well,
that. Yeah, Joe.
definitely.
Yeah, Joe
Yeah,
always
but
speaks the truth.
head on head, Joe, I would just say, Peter, that head on head, where obviously if a guy comes into a ruck situation where a guy's head's exposed and hits him, 100%. I'm really talking about those tackle situations where momentum plays a huge part of it. Now, again, if a tackler goes in and leads with his head, clearly and should have gone down, I get it. But you've seen it. I mean, Danny Kerr in the Northampton match in Twickenham 2 weeks ago got done for a record. Now he was tackling Courtney Laws, 6'4", 6'8", against 5'7", and Laws just lunged into
Yeah,
him, and they actually were going backwards towards the tackler, towards Kerr, but his head made contact. Now he got a yellow card, by the way, in that instance. Don't get me wrong, but the point I'm making is, I think that sort of situation we've seen them where it's head on head, away you go. So I think we can be intelligent enough to differentiate between, and certainly if a referee has played rugby to any standard,
yeah,
or rugby at all, has any empathy, they can see the difference
yeah,
between a malicious headshot or reckless equally, as opposed to accidental. And I think that
yeah,
that could be a kind of
yeah.
halfway house between the two.
Yeah, that's yeah. I don't see. Yeah, that's a fair enough. Yeah, I could talk to you all night, and okay, we're 42 minutes. I don't care as long as you're okay, Michael. We'll keep going. What? Yeah, I presume you've
Loving
been
it,
to.
Peter.
I presume you've been to a lot of away games, have you,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
Ireland or Leinster?
I've done all the last few. I've done a lot of Leicester games over the years. Obviously, God Almighty, going back to when I was a
Okay.
kid and there were two men and a dog. But like, I was in Gloucester last year when Osborne had that outstanding. I think he had a double, not a triple. I was in Leicester this year, great club. What a great club to go and visit, Welford Road, and last year as well. So I've been at the last two Mount Road matches, and I have to tell you, I
Right.
love them. There's a gang of us go over, myself, Alan Murphy, a gang of lads, and we always have a couple of my nephews, and we have a ball. You know yourself, Peter. Those club matches, particularly January and all that, they're not that expensive to get to, and they are great crack. And as I mentioned earlier, that probably my most favorite away match, I'd say,
Yeah.
was that famous match against Clermont in
Yeah.
2012 in Bordeaux, when we just about scraped home. And we all knew, yeah, that was the Sunday.
Oh.
And with all due
Yeah.
respects
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Ulster that year were doing well, but we knew, both sides knew that day, that whoever won that semi-final had a very, very, very good chance of winning the final, which obviously events subsequently proved right. So it felt like a final down in the south of France. And even with Wayne Barnes
Yeah.
refereeing,
Yeah.
as I said, we
Well,
still.
come here to you, Michael. If I was to ask you what then is your if no, if I was to ask you, Michael, what is your okay? So you've been to a lot of away games. What's your favorite stadium outside of Ireland then? For crack,
I,
for atmosphere, for facilities, for everything.
well, I probably, I'm half bound to say on one level, because of the match there, was the Cardiff, the Millennium Stadium, because having been down
Yeah.
22-6 at half time, which was the score, incredibly, to come back in that second half, we scored, I think it was 17 points in 15 minutes unanswered, to go 23-22 up. in the second half. So that left. Now the only thing is, and I have great Welsh friends, including one who came, an Oxford Blue, who came over to Skerries last weekend for the dinner. So don't get me wrong when I say this. There's only the Welsh, when they win, are bad, and they're only worse when they lose. So Cardiff can be, if you win as an Irish person over there, and thank God I was at the '09 Grand Slam match, and I cried with tears of joy, but all my Welsh friends disappeared. So like it's a funny stadium. I love it as a stadium, but Cardiff is an interesting place. As I said, they don't like losing and they hate when you win. But I know. I mean, other than that, I love Toulouse. You know, Toulouse is a great place, great rugby country. You know, and some great clubs in England too. As I said, Leicester was really enjoyable. And Gloucester as well, you know. So I've enjoyed a lot of them over the years, I must say.
Yeah. All right, listen, Michael. Look, we're way over time. First, I want to thank you for your time. It's been my pleasure speaking with you. And listen, enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy your glass of wine. And I will see you on Saturday. I'll message you and we'll meet for a pint on Saturday in the Herbert Park. All right, Michael.
Give Alison
Take care, buddy, and thank you very much.
I look forward to it. Thanks, Peter. Cheers.
Sláinte. I will indeed. Cheers, Michael. All the best, mate. Thank you very much. Good luck. Bye-bye.